Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Shiatsu brothers and sisters all over the world. Another week and another episode of Everything Shiatsu. This one is actually recorded because our guest is all the way in the Gold Coast of Australia, 17 hours ahead of me. So we are recording it for my library here, evening time, my time. Was the morning there or afternoon? Early
It's
afternoon, your time.
afternoon. Yeah.
Yes. Good. Well, I want to welcome Ridolfi, and the topic today is Shiatsu resilience and vitality. Welcome, Ray. It's I'm honored to have you on our show.
Thank you, Al. Honored to be here.
Thank you. How was your day today?
Yeah, day's been busy. I started off teaching started off with a live video presentation we do every Thursday morning here, followed by a meeting, followed by my energized you class, followed by another meeting, followed by treatments, and now I'm having a break in my treatment day.
Amazing. So you had a hectic, full of energy kind of day. And how
Yeah.
old are you, if you don't mind sharing? How old are you with the audience?
I'm 65 years young.
Exactly. Well, you're an inspiration just by describing your day today and having all that energy and vitality, and that's what the subject matter is. But before we dive into it, maybe you can share with the audience, for those people that maybe don't know much about you or your history, how your journey has begun with, particularly with Shiatsu therapy to begin with. I know it's a little bit unusual. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I started studying Shiatsu in 1981, so it's 40 years now. And that was at the age of 25. Prior to that, I was a lawyer, which is a very different career, very much, head, very much in the brain work. However, even when I was a young lawyer, I was always interested in the human body and health and well-being. I was very different as a lawyer already because I was vegetarian at the time, and I'd be going to the gym of a lunchtime to do workout while my colleagues were going to the hotel to drink or restaurants to eat. So I always had that sort of different focus. And there was one thing that I found very frustrating because when I was actually qualified as a lawyer, I worked in what we call family law here, which was, divorce, custody, which is all about relationship breaking down. And quite often the thing I really wanted to do was just, walk around my desk and give my client a hug. But in those circumstances, that was all, no hands-on. So, I found that difficult. So
you were naturally very empathetic to begin with for a lawyer.
Right,
that's not a good mix.
It's difficult. As a lawyer, you're trained to be cynical and skeptical.
Yes,
I know.
know.
Pick everything apart. That's the idea. So I've certainly, taken that skill in terms of diagnosis and assessing all the symptomatic stuff. It's great to have that methodology that goes in there. At the age of 24, I left Australia and lived in Italy for a little while, and then moved to the UK later in 1980. And it was a friend of mine. I was actually working as a lifeguard in the London Central YMCA. And a friend of mine there who used to come in, said, "Come along for lunch. I'm going to take you to this place called the East-West Centre."
Very famous.
It was based in London, and the East-West Centre was this very alternative world that I was introduced to. And it was a centre teaching macrobiotics as a way of life, and that included in that Shiatsu training. So I started doing Shiatsu courses there, and my first trainer was a gentleman called John Sandifer, who unfortunately is now deceased. I studied with people called another man called Neil Gulliver. These were English-based teachers who'd been, training and studying, teaching Shiatsu for years, but there was no real formal component there. So, in fact, a couple of years later, John collaborated with me and asked me if I would create a teaching structure in the school. I guess he thought my background in law and organisation stuff. So in 1983, we actually started the British School of Shiatsu Do. So we called our style Shiatsu Do. And for the first year, I did no teaching because I didn't feel I was qualified to teach anything other than some exercise classes. But we would have teachers like you. Maybe you've heard of Rex LaSalle. Rex
Yes.
LaSalle was a well-known teacher in fraternity.
From Trinidad, right?
Yeah. Michio Kushi would come and teach not our practical shiatsu classes, but philosophy of Oriental medicine. So we had big names in there. And as a school developed, I would invite other teachers, Pauline Sasaki, Ohashi from New York. And then eventually I invited a teacher called Saul Goodman. So maybe you don't know if you've met Saul in America.
He was on the show. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, and Saul and I started quite a collaboration, and together we were invited to Switzerland to start a shiatsu program there. So we worked together for a number of years, Saul and myself, and that became the International School of Shiatsu. And so that still continues on now. But I was heavily involved in that for 8 or 9 years, would regularly be teaching there. And so during that, I met lots of teachers around Europe, and from there I was invited to teach in many other places. So I've taught in most countries in Europe, taught a bit in America, used to fly back here to Australia to teach. And as our school developed in London, we ended up becoming like bigger and bigger. And so we took on branches around the UK. And we became the largest school in affiliations in Europe at one time. And so that was a wonderful time. And I was writing books. I was, doing radio interviews. I was working in television on various programs as a specialist in those to help people doing stuff related to Oriental medicine. So I had a great time. I got to meet Prince Charles as my role as the chairperson of the British Shiatsu Society. He was very much into alternative medicine. It's one of my treasured photos I have of him and I shaking hands at one event. And so carried on doing that. Now school grew. We used to have like 300 students, 25 staff. So it was quite a big thing. But my yearning was to return back to Australia. And so in 2000, we sold the school. My wife, Susanne, her original name was Francine. She's Swedish. She took my name, RIdolfi. She had her own school in Stockholm, and I had a school in London. That's how we met, through Shiatsu.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow, so she's a Shiatsu therapist too. Yeah.
Yeah. She moved from Sweden, came to London, and was a long-term teacher and became co-principal of the school of the British School of Shiatsu Do. So we have many fond memories of those years. We sold the school in 2000 and moved back to Australia in 2002. And so since then, everyone said, "Oh, you're going to start up a new Shiatsu school?" And I thought, it was like too much effort to start all over again. So
it's a big endeavor. Big endeavor.
Yep. Yeah, just going back to carrying a load of futons to church halls and doing all that. Whereas when we left, we had beautiful premises, dojos, all laid out in Japanese style. It was wonderful. So I thought, no, I can't do that yet. But I did carry on practicing here.
So you've done.
Still these days, I'm still doing about 20 treatments a week. I teach my energized view classes. My treatments, look, I've treated a lot of elite athletes in my time. These days, I tend to do a lot of resilience work in terms of they're athletes, but they're also stressed. I do a lot of mental.
So let's speak into that. Let's speak into that a little more, because that's part of why I wanted to have you on. I mean, teaching resilience. One has to be really resilient and have experience with resilience. And I think based on the what I know about you and what you've done in your life, not only professionally but personally, from climbing mountains, Mount Everest, and going into
Base
the
camp, not the whole thing.
yes, and going into the deep jungles of Africa for a period of time, Congo,
Yep.
I read somewhere. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
mean,
lived there
you've had a lot.
for 3 weeks.
That's incredible. Yeah,
I
I
had a
mean, you've
wonderful
done a
photo
lot.
of myself giving a shiatsu treatment to this pygmy chief. Short treatment, they're so small.
You must have had a lot of life experiences, what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly of life, to build
Absolutely.
that resilience. And I know also before resilience, there also has to be a mindset. So can you speak into that a little bit about how we can develop a mindset, not only to have resilience within our professional life, but also our personal life, especially during a pandemic right now, right? Where so many
Yeah,
people are
absolutely.
in constant stress.
Well, look, when I'm talking to people, my clinic is based in a fitness gymnasium. Yeah. And so a lot of my clientele come through that. And of course, the average person comes along wanting to get fit and they want to appear fit. And I
Hmm.
have to get through to them the message that, to appear fit on the outside, we need to become fit on the inside. And a lot of the challenges, people want to make changes, but they don't necessarily want accountability. They don't want to have to do the really hard stuff.
That's the
You
big
know,
one.
yeah, I mean, they will come to the gym and they will work out. They'll come to me for treatments and they'll do this. But even then, they're quite often being passive in the process. When it comes down to, so what are you doing with changes in your way of thinking? What are you doing with changes in your dietary factors? What are you doing with changes in your lifestyle? That all becomes a bit hard. And so for me, resilience is, working the mental muscle and the spiritual muscle so that I'm continually creating challenges, because I really, that saying of we grow through discomfort, I find is absolutely true. And all my life, I've given myself challenges which made myself feel uncomfortable to see how I go through the other end. And look, I still do this. My wife and I just decided, okay, we'll go a month, we said, without alcohol, just to see what difference it feels like. Now, we're not heavy drinkers anyway. If we bought a bottle of wine on a Friday night, we'd finish that one bottle on Sunday evening between two of us. Yeah? And so we say, okay, no alcohol. So that's a little uncomfortable because there's a pleasure to do it.
Hmm.
So that's a mental
Hmm.
strengthening.
Hmm.
I went through periods of my life that every month I would give up something just to challenge myself. So that might be no coffee. That might be, no sweet food, for instance. Or it might be doing something that I enjoy doing that isn't particularly constructive for me. And just to know I can do it. Because I'm would consider myself an addictive personality. If I really like something, I'll just keep doing it. Now that's great for my profession. I really like
Yes.
doing it. I'll keep doing it. But there are other things, like if I start on a roll, I'll stop. We have this biscuit in Australia called a Tim Tam. And this is a biscuit, very traditional Australian, and it's a chocolate-coated little bar biscuit. And like you can't eat one of them.
I understand. I think we share the same addiction.
So I say to people, I'm not in AA, I'm in TTA, Tim Tams Anonymous. I'm a Tim Tam alcoholic of it, so I just don't touch them. Simple as
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Out of sight, out of mind for me. And so
Yes.
our pantry at home doesn't have any junk food in it, doesn't have any chocolates in the fridge. Yeah, if we want to have stuff like that, it would only be if we went out somewhere.
It helps when you have a partner that doesn't sneak things into the pantry sometimes.
Well, that's right. I call my wife my temptress because she works quite often from home, and she'll go to a cafe and set up a computer and might come home with half a muffin.
Yes,
A lot of the
yes,
time I don't know. And so at the moment I'm sugar free. So once I've got my mind on it, I go, no, I'm not. Yeah, thank you very much, but I'm not having that. And so for me, it's the mental muscle building. And look, at one stage I was working with he became the world Ironman champion. Now, Ironman competitions are hardcore. These people are so strong, fit, and I was treating Iron men and Iron women in training time. And most of the stuff I did was just about their mental, their self-worth. What are you doing? And just the way they would fall off the wagon and stuff as well. They had such mental control on that target that they wouldn't take care of themselves. So sometimes we just need reminders to loosen up. One of my favourite authors is a gentleman called Dr. Tickle as in tickling you.
Yep.
And he wrote a book, and I've got this, it's called Fish, Vegetables, Laughter and Sex. That's the title of the book. And this is a health book. And I loved it because he says, fish, vegetables, laughter and sex, have them as much as you want. Everything else in moderation. And I thought, yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. Do those things that you know are good for you and are healthy for you, and everything else in moderation. So for me, when I'm working with my clients, and particularly if I'm giving them dietary advice, and I do dietary advice based on more the energetics of food, and I say, look, if you can eat stable, wholesome diet, preferably organic, for 90% of the time, that other 5 or 10%, just do what you want. Just have fun, enjoy it. Because that's, realistically, 2 meals a week, do what you want. But don't get in the habits of that. Change that up. Don't get stuck in that. Mix it around. So, because, sometimes, I know myself, I don't know about you, Mel, but inside of this head, I've got this wide stage saying, do the right thing, be like Buddha, breathe, do all the things. And then I have this wild, truculent, turbulent teenager who says, no, just give me things. I want this, I want that. And it's forever the battle going on.
True.
And sometimes
It's true.
let that teenager run wild.
Yeah. Sometimes I say maybe it's not good for me, but it's good for my soul, and
Exactly.
as long as we don't overindulge. So back to a mindset, when you have clients that are coming to you, or again as a Shiatsu therapist and teacher now and facilitator for almost 50 years? Are we reaching almost 50 years of you doing this work? Yeah. What kind of mindset do you have to develop again to have that longevity, to have that vitality in our career? I mean, one of it is what I'm hearing you say loudly, and I totally agree, is seek some of the discomfort, work with discomfort on a regular basis, and you start to develop some willpower, some resilience. Anything else you can add to that?
Well, I do a lot of what I call life strategy stuff with people I'm treating. Look, some people are referred to me and they come along and say, look, I hear that you're good helping people in relationships. And I go, oh, okay, fabulous. My partner and I, we're drifting apart. And I think, well, I'm not a relationships counsellor. I was a family lawyer, maybe have some of that. But I study so much. I'm a perpetual student. I'm out walking pretty much every day, and I've got my earphones in. I'm listening to this podcast. I'm continually educating myself. So I am taking information from a lot of people and finding out what sits with me. I have done many courses in communication skills, the language, listening skills, the 5 languages of love. So these things are all of interest for me. So I'm really tuning in with what someone is telling me, making my greatest attempt to be non-judgmental in that, being a listener rather than a speaker, and not trying to fix that stuff, really, but just drawing out information. And I'm always surprised the depth of information people tell me, and I realise that they've never told anyone else. So I think that becomes a skill set of having other people become comfortable in your presence because they can feel that you understand where they've been and where they are. And so for me, the greatest thing of, I guess, my skill set is continually attempting to walk my talk. So if someone comes to me for a treatment, and particularly if it's a mental health and I'm feeling slumped like this, how am I going to be for them? If they come to me for their physical health and I'm 20 kilos overweight, how am I going to be for them? So if I want them to, particularly me now, I'm actually starting a whole program called Living Longer, Younger program. I want them to look at something to aspire to, not something that I'm just saying, oh, you could be this. I want to show them that I am doing, this is the life I'm living. And if you like, I'll show you some of the things that work for me. And some of them will work for you and some of them won't, because we are different people. We've had different backgrounds. So that resilience comes from continual assessing of yourself. Do I have self-worth problems? Absolutely. And do I deal with that? Sometimes I deal with it very well. Other times I just want to shut down. As my wife says, okay, Ray, go into your cave for a day or two, work your shit out, then come back and talk to me. And so yes. I'm doing that myself. It's a constant, life can be a constant struggle. You can be in flow, and then you hit a big rock in the river. And until I slide around that, I'm little truculent teenager voice is dominating the sage voice. And I think just the fact that I'm open with people that, I've had some of the same experiences they've had as well, draws out from them. And I'm always very thankful. I had a young man yesterday, and at the end of it, I said, thank you. I'm so grateful that you told me everything you told me. Thank you for that honor of doing stuff. I make sure that when everyone, and people commonly say after a trip, oh, great, that was great. Thank you very much. And I say, thank you. Giving me this experience. It took 2 of us to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely sacred. Yeah, when somebody reveals their story to us, absolutely. Yep. I mean,
so
and this very
factor for people would be, giving them what I call tools to put in their toolkit of life, and that toolkit might be, okay, you're feeling this emotion now. Let's address that. What's happening with that? And I will go into the Oriental aspect of the emotions and the organs and how their energetic diet may affect their organs and the external pernicious influences and their internal pernicious influences, trying to put it in understandable language for them that they can work with that and say, okay, what do you think you can do about that? And it's quite often just sit there and wait and see what they say, because you and I know how, if I tell you, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and you've got to do that, as we say, a person convinced against their will is a person unconvinced still. I can't change you. You got to change yourself.
Absolutely.
And, sometimes it's just pointing out to people that, okay, I understand that you carry a lot of anger and frustration, as we know, fairly common in our typical society today. Who are you angry at? Oh, every time I see Joe, James, Eve, or whatever, they make me so angry. And it's just those moments of pointing out, no, wait a minute. You make yourself angry when you're in their presence. go away from being a victim to go away to possible control of that. And so that might be a toolkit for them. Just sit back, wait. Okay, am I angry at them? I'm staring at my own anger. Therefore, I can let that anger go.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's where I love accountability, right? If you can reflect that back on them,
Absolutely,
and and elicit some of their accountability around it, because at the end of the day, what they seek is control over their pain or their wellness or their well-being. Yeah, the control that gives them that freedom that they desire, right? So if you just reflect that
absolutely.
back,
And I think it's okay to be vulnerable. One of my most vulnerable experiences of exposing myself when I was 59, I decided that my next bucket list thing I wanted to do, like trekking Mount Everest, was a bucket list thing. I trekked up Mount Kilimanjaro, bucket list thing. I traveled
beautiful.
around, Africa, bucket list thing. I like to do, parachuting, hang gliding, plane gliding. If I can do something, I go, done that, great. What's the next thing? Because the more experiences that we can have, particularly as we're younger, to the younger audience out there, take risks, do scary things. These are the stories you're going to tell when you're my age. And I'm still creating my stories I'm going to tell when I'm 90.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
enjoying. Yeah. So when I was 59, I decided that I wanted to do a mixed martial arts cage fight. I started mixed martial arts training when I was 53. I took my son at the time, he was 11, along to do some jiu-jitsu training. I saw what he was doing and I thought, this is fun. I want to get into this. And I ended up doing MMA. And,
Amazing. That's amazing.
well, there was a joke around the club because once I graduated into what was called the fighters team, which was hardcore, more serious. I was training 6 days a week doing that. The coach would say, okay, who's putting their hand up for the next round of competition fights? And I'd go, oh, yeah, joking. And then he would say, no, Ray, you're too old. And he said this quite a few times. Yeah, no, you're too old. And this started to, truculent teenager telling me I'm too old. And I eventually said, well, I don't think I am. I'd like to do that. And he got on board. There were concerns, my age going into it, everything from insurance to otherwise. But I did training camps 8 weeks, and it's hardcore. Yeah, people are hitting you in the face. People are trying to defeat you. So to toughen up, to have that experience of everything, talk about external pernicious influences, they're coming in the form of fists and elbows and knees. And
Wow. Yeah.
To protect oneself and stay calm was great resilience for me. And I have never competed feeling angry at anyone. I've always competed as I'm learning skills here, like when I studied Shiatsu, learning new skills. And we used to do this thing called Shark Tank. And in Shark Tank, the fighter who's preparing for a fight would stay in the ring as such. There were 3-minute rounds and 3 different fighters would come in. So each one for a minute. And they'd go full force with you. And then they'd go out and a fresh one would come in. Minute. They'd go out, fresh one. And you're in there getting pounded. And the learning point when you grew was when you were so exhausted that you didn't think you could defend yourself or even attack. And your coach said, bite down on your mouth guard, attack. And you're exhausted. And you have to get up. And so you grow, I've got more in me than I thought. And so that was a big thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day comes for my fight, which actually got delayed a few times. My 8-week camp became 9 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had to take a break. And I ended up, my opponent was 39 years old. And
so 20 years younger than you.
20 years younger than me. It was his first fight as well. Yep. And the difficulty was getting a competitor because they were in a no-win situation. 59-year-old man against
Yes.
anyone younger, right? If they win against me, people would say, yeah, he's 59.
It's
What
59.
sort of win is that? If they lost against me, they'd say, you lost against a 59. There was no win for them.
Absolutely. Yes,
And
yes,
so
I
they
see
couldn't
that.
find any competitors. I actually put out on social media, 59-year-old virgin looking for one night stand, 9 minutes or so of your time. And that social media, that me going bizarre, attracted the person who was going to have a laugh and said, yeah, I'll get in the ring with him. And that was it. So when you want to change things that you're not getting, you have to step out of your comfort zones. For me to put that on social media was, uncomfortable, making a laugh at myself, but it got me to my goal. And then
Beautiful.
the night of
Beautiful.
the fight, I was terrified, absolutely terrified.
I believe you.
Warming
Yeah.
up in my room, with my corner people. I could see this other guy in the other room. He's doing these high round kicks and swinging back and doing this magic stuff that I couldn't do. Yeah, I'm 59. I can't kick you in the
Yes.
head.
Yes.
And so it's a terrifying moment for me. The thing that got me through when they finally called out the name, and also the fight before me, the guy came in and he was bleeding all over the place, And
Oh, wow.
I'd been to the toilet so many times, I thought I can't go again. And my moment was, if I just leave, how would I feel? And that was a moment.
Yes.
Right. And I walked out, and as soon as the music started, I stood on this podium, all these lights, playing my music. What got me there was my teacher role. My teacher role, standing in front of a crowd, turn on teacher, I'm at peace, and I went from there. My
Got
nerves
it.
just
How
went off.
how was the fight?
Fight was a lot of fun. We went the full 3 rounds. I got the decision, the win decision.
Woo!
Well, they call it unanimous decision. I got knocked out twice in the fight, as in knocked, falling to the ground, woke
Wow.
up again. I did some wonderful takedown, it's called. He knocked me out. I was staggering across. He ran at me with a flying knee to my gut. I caught the knee and took him down.
Wow. Incredible.
So they're very mixed, anything could happen. But I was
That's an
most thankful to my opponent. For that
incredible story at 59 to decide to go into a cage and do MMA. I mean,
Yeah,
that's that
not something I recommend for everyone. But,
you are a character. Now, what can you, from
and I still
everything,
now do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
are you a
So I
black
do
belt in it?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Which belt are you?
So I'm a purple belt in
Purple
Brazilian
belt.
Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
So
Good.
my goal is to be black belt by the time I'm 70. So I have another 5 years to do. So I'm still setting myself goals, and that's a long-term, hard grind, resilience goal.
I admire that. It's never too late, guys. It's never too late, and he's a great example.
Absolutely. People say to me, I'm 40, I'm too old to do that. I go, don't tell me.
Good, good,
Don't
good.
tell
Now,
me. So,
speaking to our audience, and again, we all know the big elephant in the room. We are under this umbrella of the pandemic. That is the biggest ultra marathon that many of us have undertaken on
yeah,
so many levels. Knowing, I mean, I just on the way here, on the way home, I was listening to the radio, and it was a little bit heartbreaking because they announced since the beginning of January to the end of July, just in our province, which is British Columbia, there's been almost 2,000 deaths from overdoses. So because of the pandemic and what it does to our
health.
mental health,
Yeah.
it increases, of course, addictive behaviors, right? And numbing mechanisms. And a big part of it in this part of the world, and I'm sure in many others, is drugs. So there's been a lot of, and those are people that have died. I mean, people that haven't died but had overdoses could be double, right?
Mm.
So it's a major issue when it comes to diminishing our will, diminishing our mental health, diminishing our physical health, just because of the amount of stress and the amount of fear that is out there. So what if you had a template, and maybe this is where you can speak to your program that you've created. If you had a template to share with us in a way, uh, what would that be?
You mean specifically to like deal with our current environment? Or
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of that is to do. Remember, I said I was a young family lawyer, and I couldn't walk around the desk and give that person a hug because of rules and guidelines, professional guidelines. So there was a constant disconnect there. On a human level, I couldn't go that full fulfillment of a loving hug. And that's what I love about Shiatsu. Any form of body work, someone can come to you and you can express a loving hug through your hands to do that and have them feel that here is this other person taking care of me for whatever period of time. When we had our training organisation, the British School of Shiatsu Do, the principal philosophy would say, I would say to people, look, when I'm with you as a client, for that 1 hour session, whatever it is, I want to treat you like the most important person in the world. Not forever, but just for this period of time. And if I can express that to you, you're very likely to feel loved, a connection, a willingness to open up and accept support. Now, even this morning, I was, treating a young man that I do a wellness scale of like 1 to 10. 10 or a contentment scale where you are in life. 10 feeling pretty blissful, 1 miserable, I can't get out from under the covers and face another day. That's suitable for most people. When I'm working with people with addictions, I go from -10 to +10. Yep. This person started at -2. Sorry, -8 when they came to see me. Today is at a +7. So during the course of our working together, gone from -8 +7. And of course, there are other influences in that, but it's just been listening, providing little tools. I've taught him meditation. I've taught him, I studied with Mantak Chia. Have you heard of him?
Yep. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for this guy, microcosmic orbit was great. I actually do boxing sessions with him as well. It's part of therapy. So we do treatment sessions and we do boxing because physical
expressing,
movement,
expressing all that energy. Yep.
And the concentration. Believe me, when you've got someone opposite you boxing you or grappling you in your jiu-jitsu, you have to be there. You have to be right here, right now. You can't be worried about other things. So that moment, and so typically what I would do with this guy as well, I'd get him hands up and I'd be just say, okay, defend, whack, whack, until he calms down. And if we can find ourselves in a position where we realize there are these external pernicious influence, a lot of this now is society is being our external pernicious influence. And I'm hungry now. Yeah, they're beating me. You got to do this, and you can't leave, and you can't do it, you've got to have this jab. If I can just listen to all that chatter, let it go, and go back into my core self. Something I will say to people all the time, no matter where you go, Mahale. In Canada, if you travel America, you came to Australia, you go to this situation. The common denominator is that you are always there. Your environment might change, but you are always there. So the only thing we have control of is myself,
Absolutely.
me, myself, mine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's the resilience part. That's the tool part going, all this stuff's going on. Am I going to let this go on internal, or am I going to just settle and look at it? So reaching out, I mean, I certainly find, communicating with people helps. This whole idea of community, even look, you wonderfully created a virtual community.
Thank you.
Bonus to you. Fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
In
Yeah.
a time when we couldn't get out there physically. Fortunately, here in Queensland, we don't have any lockdowns at the moment. People
Oh,
can
good.
come to me. We can go to the gym.
Good.
And we can even hug. So,
Good.
it's great because we see the mental health rate, domestic violence rate goes up when we're locked
That's
in.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yep. That's
So
right.
the more we can get out
Yeah, go ahead.
emotionally, if we can't get out physically. I've
And
only got
touch is
5
such a
minutes
big.
before I have to
Okay,
go.
sure. Touch is such a big factor of it, from the days that we are babies and developing to even now. I mean, I just worked today on someone who is dying, a husband and a wife. The husband is terminally ill, and the wife had a terrible fall trying to care for the husband, an elderly
Yeah.
woman too. But I look at both of them, and they were so resilient on so many levels. And the man had so much dignity with everything that he's going through. They had so much dignity that they even kicked out the medical professionals that really used inappropriate language or that diminishes all hope and in my book, all manners, right, of how to talk to a patient. And and the wife said proudly, yeah, I kicked the doctor out of the house just because of the language he used with my husband, and I was quite upset. um,
Uh,
so we learn a lot from the people that come to see us, about resilience and about
Absolutely.
dignity. Yeah.
You're touching on that whole point of the placebo or the nocebo effect as well. If, for me, like vaccines, etc., if people choose to do that, that is their choice. And the possible placebo effect is if they think this is going to be great and build my immunity, well, hopefully it will. Conversely, like yourself, I was treating someone terminally ill, and we were actually doing well until the medical profession came in and said, okay, we're going to move you to a hospice now. There's nothing further that will help you. Guy died the next day. The
Yes.
nocebo effect of telling you it's helpless, it's hopeless, there's nothing you can do to change is a killer. And when we're being told that consistently is the message coming to us, that is severe coercion at the most detrimental level. So the message out there is, yeah, you can do a lot. Build your immune strength, communicate with people. Yeah, herd immunity on the level of herd mental immunity, that we can strengthen it as a group together, as a village together, taking care of each other, whether it's online, whether it's physically. Stay in communication, stay in touch with people, because you and I, and you're listening as Shiatsu, we are touch as communication, verbal as communication, all forms of communication. And that's our role, is to keep communicating, be good listeners, sometimes give advice, sometimes be are you following that advice? And helping people make their choices and teaching people toolkits to take care of themselves.
Well, beautifully said, Ray. And thank you for all you've done in our Shiatsu community. It was quite a journey.
My pleasure.
And thank you for coming on board and sharing more of that beautiful energy that you have, showing us that it's never too late, showing us that really only there to challenge ourselves and our limited beliefs. Thank you for shining a bright light in Australia, and I look forward to having you again.
Thank you very much, Mel. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.